Let us get into our lab now. So let us move on to verify some of the troubleshooting here. Like I already pre-configured some errors here. Now my requirement here is to make sure that your 1.5 PC, or we can say 1.1 PC, must be able to communicate with 1.5. So the first thing, I'll try to make sure that these two ports, they must be on the same VLAN. So that is one thing we need to check. Let us try to verify whether they are able to communicate or not. So I'm on my 1.1 PC. So I'm just trying to verify my IP addressing here, IP config, and I'm trying to communicate with 192.168.1.5. So I can see here the reply is not coming, which means there is some problem. So I put some 3-4 issues here. Whatever we discussed, I try to put some of the issues. We are going to see how to troubleshoot step by step. Okay, so we need to make sure that your 1.1 and 1.5 should communicate with each other. So the first thing, I'll try to make sure that there is no problem with my switch configuration. So I'll try to ping to my 1.2, 1.3 as well as 1.4, which is on the same switch. I'm able to communicate with them, and at the same time I am able to communicate with my 1.100 also, which is my router. So same switch I'm able to communicate, but I'm not able to communicate with the other devices which are on a different switch, which means the most likely the problem may be, now we can figure out the problem might be on this link, or the problem might be on the other end of the devices. So let us confirm that. So the basic thing, I suggest you to start with physical connectivity, and here physical connectivity is perfect. So I'm not getting into that in detail because we discussed that already. So after that, you have to verify the VLAN configurations. You have to make sure that this port and this port must be on the same VLAN. So right now I'm using port number 1 over there. So let us try to figure out, going to my switch 1, I will verify. You can see the messages here. If you remember, there is a native VLAN mismatch here. Anyway, we'll come to this later on. So whenever you see these messages, there is a native VLAN mismatch. So I already configured these things with some wrong configurations. So we are going to troubleshoot that. So if I give show VLAN, I should see this port number 1 is in a VLAN 10. And on the switch 2 also, I should see the port number 1, which is, this is my switch 2 interface, or I can say show VLAN. So you can see here port 1 is not in a VLAN 1. So it is on a VLAN 10. So it is on VLAN 20, but as per our requirement, they both should be on the same VLAN to communicate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply shift the port to VLAN 10. And once I do this, now both the ports are in the same VLAN. That is a basic requirement for us. So let me check whether I should be able to communicate with 1.5 or not. Still, I cannot communicate because even though they are on the same VLAN, there might be some other problem here. And I think so. Let me just try to figure out what is the problem. The problem might be here. So there's no problem here. There's no problem on the access links. Mostly the problem is on the switches, or it can be on the trunk link configurations. So now the next requirement, they should be on the same VLAN. That is what we verified. Now the next thing, there should be a trunk link configured between the two switches. Without trunking, it is not going to allow the VLAN traffic through that. So whenever you want your same VLAN users must communicate between the switches, there must be a trunk link. So I'll try to verify the trunk link configurations now. And the command here is show interface trunk. I'm connecting port number 24 between the switches here. So port number trunk, you can see the mode is on, trunking is enabled with 802.1q encapsulation, and the native VLAN is 10. Let me check the other end. So I'll go to switch 2, show interface trunk, just verifying what are the trunk links. Here you can see the mode is auto, desirable mode. It's okay because one side is trunk and the other side is auto, still works in our scenario. But the problem here is native VLAN. You can see native VLAN is mismatching on both the sides because I manually changed the native VLAN. So the solution is you need to change the native VLAN to be same on both the sides. So the command is switchport trunk native VLAN. We need to change it to any VLAN which must be same on both the sides. So on both the sides I have kept the native VLAN configurations to be 1. So if I give show interface trunk, you can see the native VLAN is 1 here, and the native VLAN is 1 again on this side also. So which means there was a problem with native VLAN. I fixed it. And if I try to verify my DTP options, now DTP options on one side it is configured as a trunk and the other side is auto. So I hope this will work, so there won't be any problem. But still, if you want to make both the sides as a trunk, which is recommended, so you can just make both the sides as a manual trunking. So I'll do manual trunking on both the sides just to enable manual trunking. So interface F0/24 switch port mode trunk, that's it. And if I verify, there is no mismatch of protocol. Both the sides we are using 802.1q, and this side also I'm using 802.1q. So there is no problem with protocol mismatch. So hopefully we fix some of the issues. Now let's try to verify the communication here. You can see now both the devices starts communicating with each other. You can see if I ping from 1.1 to 1.5, I can see the communication is happening. So I really suggest you to go through with these options. Like in our scenario, I didn't put all the issues. I have kept these issues just to show you that if there is a mismatch of native VLAN, it's not going to work. But this is something we should know, basic things: mismatch of encapsulations, trunking modes, and then or the same VLAN permitting VLANs. So let me just show you this as well, permitting the same VLANs. So what I'll do is I will try to take my same scenario here, and by default let me just show you that configuration on my switches. Switch 1, this allowed VLAN on the trunk. You can see here by default port number 20 I configured as allowed VLAN 10 and 20, which means the trunk link connecting between the switches here, whatever the trunk link which I'm connecting between the switches, it is allowing both VLAN 10 traffic and VLAN 20 traffic. Suppose this trunk link is allowing all the VLAN, let's say here, and this link is just allowing only 10 and 20 VLAN. There is a mismatch of allowed VLAN traffic. In that case, also the communication will stop. Let us try to create a problem here on our own and try to verify that. So that's the only thing to master your troubleshooting skills. You have to create your own problems and try to make sure that you fix them and verify how it is going to work. So I'm getting into my switch 1. I'm going to say interface 24. I'm going to say switch port trunk allowed VLAN all. All is something by default, it allows all the VLANs. So if I verify show interface trunk command, you can see by default port number 24 is allowing all the VLANs. And if I verify switch 2, it is allowing all the VLANs here. I have put some troubleshooting here. I just configured my switches relating to allow VLAN. So now in general, if you want this user who is belong to VLAN 10 want to communicate with VLAN 10, so you have to ensure that this particular trunk link must allow VLAN 10 traffic. Suppose if you don't define that, so anyway, we generally when we configure by default switches will allow all the VLAN traffic, but still we can configure that if I'm using only VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 in my production network, I can configure it to allow only VLAN 10 VLAN 20 traffic and drop all the remaining traffic. So we can even configure that. But in case if you are not allowing the VLAN 10 on this particular link, in that case also your communication will stop. Like I did the same thing here. If I try to verify my devices here, so they were able to communicate previously, and I put some error into it. Now if I try to verify, there is no communication is happening. So there is no problem in the LAN. Whatever the things we verified previously, like they are on the same VLAN, so no problem in the VLAN configurations. Now this trunk link is also configured and native VLAN is also same, so there's no problem relating to that. But if you want, you can try and verify all those things one more time. So I'm going to switches here. If I go show interface trunk, you can see, and F0/24 the mode is on, native VLAN is 1, and if I go to switch 2 also, it's the same thing. Let me use again. You can see port is on, 802.1q, there's no protocol mismatch, and it is configured as trunking. Native VLAN is also same. But there's one thing we need to check. Here you can see this particular link of switch 1 is allowing all the VLAN traffic. But if I try to see on the other switch, this one, it is not allowing the VLAN trend. So I did one command just now. I removed the VLAN trend traffic here just for understanding. So now this link is allowing all the VLAN, but this link is not allowing the 10 traffic. But the communication between these two devices happens based on VLAN 10, because VLAN 10 is the exact VLAN which we are using between these two devices. So now this link is not allowing the VLAN traffic 10. Okay, so we need to make sure that both the links must allow the VLAN traffic, whatever the VLAN you want to communicate. Okay, so the troubleshooting here is to make sure that you add VLAN 10 to allows. So command is switchport trunk allowed VLAN. And very important thing, when you are doing modifications to the existing configurations, if I just say VLAN 10, I'll show you what happens. If I give show interface trunk, now it will only allow the VLAN 10. So this is something which I really recommend not to do that whenever you are doing these things. So make sure that switchport trunk allowed VLAN, you have to use a command called add. Anyway, I already did that. So what I'll do is I'll say switchport trunk allowed VLAN. I will say question mark VLAN except 10. I did that actually initially for troubleshooting. Now I'm just going to back. So you have to make sure that all the remaining VLANs also must be allowed. In that case, you need to say interface F0/24 switchport trunk allowed VLAN. You have to say add. Add means add to existing numbers. If you don't say add, it is going to only allow the VLAN 10. So this is something many people do mistakes when they modify the configurations. They don't really use add or accept options. So make use of these options. So I'm going to say add 10. So if I verify show interface trunk, now you can see it is allowing all the VLANs. So now if I try to verify the communication between my devices, now I should see the communication is happening between these two devices. So these are some of the points we need to keep in mind whenever we are doing troubleshooting with your trunking options. In order to have a proper communication between the two devices which are on the different switches, the first thing, they should be on the same VLAN. That is the first thing we need to keep in mind, apart from verifying the physical connectivity. And then the trunking must be configured and both the sides should have a proper trunking modes. And then if there is a mismatch of native VLAN, in that case also the communication will not happen. So ensure that both the sides we are using the same encapsulation. And then allowed VLAN. Allowed VLAN is something we need to also check out. And if you're not allowing the VLAN 10 traffic on this link, in that case it will not communicate because these two devices are on the VLAN 10. Okay. So probably now next section we'll see some more troubleshooting. Probably we'll see how to troubleshoot your VTP configurations. So I'm keeping all the troubleshooting separate so that, but all the things are related here. So thanks for watching.